Chapter 29 Veldanura. Trig donned his spacesuit and reported to the cockpit. Tenna did the same and took over one of the weapons control stations. Captain Cantor briefed everyone on the situation. Trade station security just called us to say our Mark has left the station and boarded his ship. The Hualinga started turning and burning as soon as she got clear. They're heading for Tritonus. Trig strapped himself into the co-pilot's seat and examined the astro navigation screen. If we burn hard, we could intercept Hualinga before they get to a hyperlane, Trig said. And that's what we're gonna do, Cantor replied. Shepminter, start accelerating. Rulan, fire up the electronic warfare suite. I want that ship deaf and dumb. Everyone else, secure your gear and get ready to pull high G's. The Resonance Cascade throttled her engine to full burn, chasing the Hualinga across the system. Trig was surprised to learn that Cantor allowed him to control the intercept, piloting the ship with only minimal corrections from Rulan. It's time for you to sink or swim, Shepminter, Cantor said. You were going to be tested sooner or later. Show us what you can do. Rulan, give me an update on the EW suite. The target is deaf and dumb, sir, Rulan replied. We're flooding his interlink nodes with junk data. Any messages coming in will be garbled. He can't transmit anything right now. Don't expect this guy to call for help. Send Hualinga a message in the clear, Cantor ordered. Tell them we mean no harm, and we only want access to Veldanura. The transmission was sent, but it did not produce the result Trig was hoping for. He felt the control column begin to tremor in his hand. I've got a stick shaker, Trig yelled. They're targeting us! A moment later, the Hualinga opened fire. Torpedoes launched from the escaping vessel in groups of 3, filling the screen until Trig lost count of the deadly red dots. Holy Ariha, that's a lot of incoming, Trig gasped. How many torpedoes did they just launch at us? In his earpiece, Tenna's voice called out, 30! No, wait, 29! They're coming in fast, Cantor said. Shepminter, Rulan, give me a starboard evasive maneuver. Roger that. Maneuvering thrusters online. Trig pressed a button on the console, giving control to Rulan. I'm putting us into a spin, Rulan said. Honora, Bronley, launch decoys. The Resonance Cascade began to rotate along its vertical axis, spinning like a top. Trig kept his eyes away from the view screen, where the universe was now orbiting clockwise around a single wobbly star. The vessel shuddered as the decoys were launched. Then he heard Tenna curse. Decoys only got 2. We've still got 27 torpedoes coming in. Distance 19,000 kilometers. Bringing the Sea Whiz online, Bronley said over the intercom. Keep spinning. Give me 30 revolutions per minute and I'll be happy. Rulan twitched the control column, forcing the ship to spin even faster. The Sea Whiz cannons began to fire in a rhythmic pattern, sending a burst of shells downrange before falling silent for a revolution. Trig understood why Bronley was doing this. He was attempting to drain ammunition from the Sea Whiz guns evenly by bringing only 1 or 2 to bear at any given moment. One by one, the incoming torpedoes were picked off. Each of the Sea Whiz guns took 2 targets before the vessel rotated underneath of it. Trig turned his head sharply when a pitter-patter sound reached his ears. We're being hit by debris from those torpedoes, Rulan said. Blow through. Keep the throttle pinned. Trig held the throttle controls while Rulan continued spinning the ship. Everyone was painfully pressed into the sides of their seats by centrifugal force. Bronley and Tenna carried on shooting at torpedoes until a jarring impact caused the Cascade to lurch upward. Trig gripped the control column so hard he was afraid it might break. Turret 1 is jammed! Selborne yelled over the intercom. Trig looked down at the screen and saw that one of the Sea Whiz cannons was offline. Resonance Cascade now had a blind spot where her weapons could not reach, and this quickly became a problem. The enemy torpedoes must have been using AI pilots, just like the ones used by the Cascade. Trig guessed this because 3 of the incoming weapons changed course, aiming for the Cascade's newly created weak spot. I've got 3 torpedoes going for the ventral hull, Trig called out. Coming around, Rulon responded, bringing turret 5 to bear. Rulon fired maneuvering thrusters along the ship's longitudinal axis, flipping the Resonance Cascade end over end until one of the Sea-Whiz turrets could draw a bead on the incoming torpedoes. That's a hit, Tenna shouted from the weapons control station. I got one, Bromley added. Scratch another, I've got 2. The vessel shuddered one last time before the Sea-Whiz turrets fell silent. Captain Cantor slammed his fist on the console and cheered loudly. Yes! We got 'em all! Selborne, put a torpedo in the bastard's drive cone! Looking down at his sensor screen, Trig watched as the Resonance Cascade fired a single torpedo of her own. The weapon burned its thruster hard to outpace the enemy vessel before slamming into the enemy's sublight engine. Captain, the Hualinga is calling us, Rulon said. Shall I open communications? Trig relaxed his grip on the controls. He laid in a new intercept course and made the Cascade finally stop spinning. At the same time, a voice came over the intercom, speaking in the Olenbar language. Attention, Sutherian warship. I surrender. Then stand down and cease fire, Cantor replied. Understood. Standing down, the enemy commander sighed. Prepare to be boarded and to surrender any data and personnel we require, Cantor ordered. Agreed. While the Resonance Cascade approached its target, Ponico, still outfitted in his spacesuit, came into the cockpit. I want to talk to him, Ponico growled. The Resonance Cascade drew alongside the Hualinga and extended its collapsible airlock, which could be used as a docking mechanism in situations like this. As the two starships connected to each other, Trig left the cockpit and started descending the 12 ladders and staircases between the cockpit and airlock. Along the way, he passed through the weapons control station. We used about 30% of our Sea-Whiz ammo, Tenna was saying to Anfeld and Glossum. Let's hope we don't have to do that again. Sure, Glossum said, waving his hand dismissively. But can we talk about how good you were back there? Inside her helmet, Tenna blushed. Wait, you really think I did good? I looked at your combat logs, Glossum said. You had like a 65% hit rate. That's pretty good for a first-timer. Realizing the two mercenaries were trying to flirt with Tenna again, Trig changed course, planning to intervene, but Ponico caught him. We have an appointment to keep, Ponico said. Trig and Ponico, still wearing their spacesuits, armed themselves with blaster pistols and stepped through the airlock. Bromley was there as well, equipped with a gel gun. They never depressurized their ship, Bromley said. Looks like they weren't ready for a fight. Wait a second, Trig said. How come you need a spacesuit, Ponico? I thought you could do the whole turn to dust thing. I still need atmosphere and regulated temperatures to live, just like anyone else, Ponico remarked. Follow me. While the airlock filled with enough atmosphere to match that of the Hualinga, Trig peered out of a window and spotted the crippled ship. It was a very strange vessel. The Hualinga was not a warship, but rather a civilian cargo barge, of the type used to haul minerals or alloys. It had no defenses aside from a single-use torpedo launcher, externally mounted on the stern. The launcher looked as though it was added in great haste. Check it out, Trig said. They fired all their torpedoes at us on the first salvo. They don't have any weapons left. Ponico looked concerned. A moment later, the airlock opened. The interior of the Hualinga was deserted, silent as the grave. Selborne's voice came over the radio built into Trig's suit. Hey guys, I just finished my close-up scans of that ship. You're not gonna believe this. There's only one person on board. Following Selborne's guidance, Trig, Ponico, and Bromley made their way to the bridge. The doorway leading into the room was sealed, but a small window allowed the trio to peer inside. Trig had seen Nagyari before, on televisions, holograms, history textbooks, and video games. He had even seen a very small number of them on Sutheria, both before and during the outbreak of war. But this was the first time he met one up close and spoke to it. The Nagyari are similar to both Olenbar and Sutherians. Their faces, eyes, and skin had Sutherian look and texture. Just like the Olenbar, they were hairless and had blue skin. If anything, the Nagyari looked as though they could have been the middle stage of evolution between Sutherian and Olenbar, although they were somewhat closer to the latter. Veldanura looked bizarre. His eyes were bloodshot with large bags underneath them. He stumbled as he approached the doorway and seemed to be disoriented. In addition to all of this, Veldanura was as naked as the day he was born. Trig noticed that Veldanura was shivering. His breath formed clouds in front of his face. Trig quickly looked down at the wrist-mounted computer on his spacesuit. The ship's internal air temperature was just 1 degree above the freezing point. It was as though someone had allowed all of the heat to simply bleed off into space. Panico flinched at the sight, then pushed the intercom button by the doorway and said, "You've seen better days, old friend." Veldanura stammered an unheard response before fumbling with his own talk button. 13 years ago, I would have had your severed head and limbs on my table as trophies, you traitorous scum. Open the door, Veldanura, Panico ordered. We need to relieve you of... Veldanura laughed. It was a cold cackle. Come in then! Take whatever you want, but you'll find I have something to give you as well. Something you can give that piejack Camber for me, since he sent you to do his dirty work. Panico hesitated. Hold on, he said. What did he just say? He thinks we're working for Alex Camber, Trig said, who had understood Veldanura's meaning right away. Keep your helmets on, Panico ordered Trig and Bronley. He has contracted the nocturnal plague and appears to be in the throes of the madness. Great, Trig said. How are we supposed to find the keystone if the guy holding it is out of his mind? A moment later, Tenna's voice sounded over the radio network. Actually, Trig, I think I know what he did with the keystone.